Running our own business isn't easy, and it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And on Scale Up Radio, we aim to help make things just that little bit easier by interviewing guests who have been where you are now, regardless of where you are on the scale up journey, and maybe facing some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked well for them, as well as what didn't, of course. And we've also combined many of these lessons into a practical scale-up handbook called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And there's details of this at the end of the episode. So welcome to Scale Up Radio.
So, hello, Paul Harris. Welcome to Scale Up Radio. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Granger. Yes, I'm Paul Harris. I am the founder and principal consultant at Coacto. We are a Salesforce.com implementation partner. And what we do is we implement business systems for businesses that are looking to scale, grow, automate, just improve their business. Because, ultimately, if you are systemizing your business, you've got processes in place, you tend to perform much better, because if you're measuring something and tracking something, it tends to get done. And that's what we help our customers do.
Excellent. Yes, in my background, I definitely agree with those type of things. So systems, business systems, give us a flavor. What type of things are you talking about? Yeah,
that's a good question. I think it's very broad for us, really. I mean, we've implemented a whole variety of different systems for different types of business. And whilst expertise in a particular vertical or a particular sector does help, I mean, most businesses actually do things that are fundamentally the same. They are buying something in and selling it, buying something in, doing something to it and selling it, or they're selling some kind of services. And wrapped around that are a number of processes that support the business, which include things like marketing and lead generation, managing the sales process, and then operationally managing the delivery of that product or that service, providing post-service or post-product delivery support to those customers. And they then also looking to get new customers or sell to their existing customers. So fundamentally, most businesses have the same core processes. And we found that we've been able to work with many, many different kinds of business. And to give you a flavor, the projects that we're currently working on, we're working for a company that installs playground equipment for local authorities, for schools. We're working with a book subscription and book fair provider. We're working with a couple of companies that rent and sell medical equipment for drugs companies to undertake drugs trials. We're working with 3 charities and providing systems to support them with what they do. And that is a slightly different model, because it's much more relationship based. You've got donors and volunteers and people that are using the services and so on. But it's really about maintaining those contacts and those relationships. And so we find that we can almost turn our hand to almost any business, actually, although I have to say we probably specialize in organizations that want to manage customer-related information, sales, service, creating portals maybe for customers to engage with them. And we also work with organizations that want to manage manufacturing, supply chain, ERP types of systems that can join e-commerce systems on the front end, maybe linked to a website, all the way through that lead process, all the way through the opportunity process, winning a sale, delivering that, and then putting that information ultimately into an accounting system on the back end. So really kind of like a soup to nuts kind of system, which can often involve joining together a variety of business processes and in most cases, actually a variety of different business systems.
Right.
Because not everybody uses one system. They use a variety of them.
Yeah. I was going to, my next question was, do you recommend off-the-shelf type packages? You also talked about linking them together, or do you write specific code for unique packages for each of the clients?
Yeah, I think being a Salesforce.com implementation partner, everything that we do has Salesforce at the hub of that. And that hub can be a number of different things. For one organization that we work with that manufactures sports trims for all of the big sports companies, around, Three Stripes and all of those kind of things, they're using the system purely to purchase all of their goods in, which then goes into the factories for the manufacturing of these trims and everything else, and then selling those trims back to those organizations. They don't really use it for anything other than sales and purchasing. Now, they've just contacted us because they want to link it into their accounting package, but they're using the Salesforce.com platform for that because they found there were some capabilities that ran on that platform that suited their business or that could be adapted and configured to their business. So in that particular case, there was some code involved. It was mostly configuration. It was a lot of modeling and understanding the processes so that we could align the system, we could fit the system to how they purchase, to how they sell. And given what they do have some specifics around managing and tracking the inventory that they buy in and turning that into the finished goods. For other organizations, we're just about to start work with a charity called Animal Free Research UK, and they've come to us because they have their volunteer management and donor management, really sorted with their existing system. But they want a B2B system that allows them to outreach to businesses, to get businesses to sponsor them, to work with them, to publicize what they do. So we're going to use a product called Salesforce Sales Cloud, which is really about managing those relationships, with them and other organizations, with the people in those organizations, and also with related research organizations or sponsors or other people that are undertaking research. So it varies very much from we try and operate on a low code model. We try not to write code if we can help it. And Salesforce provides a ton of tools that enables us to do that configuration of that base platform, but it also provides mechanisms to automate processes, business processes. But where needed, we have to integrate maybe with other platforms and other systems, such as you described. So we're working with an engineering company at the moment, and they provide sealing technology. So where you might have two pipes joining together, there might need to be a seal, and that could be in a car, it could be in a piece of equipment in the oil industry, it could be a variety of things. So they design and build those, and they have a system that they've been using for probably about 20 years. It's an on-premise ERP system that they're not moving away from anytime soon, but they wanted to improve their quoting process. They wanted to improve their account management, their lead tracking and management. They wanted to improve their quality. They wanted to improve their design and interfacing with the customers. When a customer comes to them and says, we need a seal for this, what kind of seal would you recommend? So they might have to go and design, they might have to go away and get somebody to manufacture that. So they wanted to do that front end process automated and captured in a system so that they could then feed that into the system that manages their stock, that manages their ordering, that manages their accounts, and also manages the electronic exchange of information with a couple of other of their customers that this system integrates with. And so they came to us, I think they were kind of sold on the Salesforce platform to some extent, but the real stumbling block for them and why they hadn't really successfully engaged with anybody else is nobody could link this ERP system to a system that would manage the front end of their business. And so we said, well, let's do some discovery. Let's understand what it is you need. Let's build that shopping list of behaviors that the system must really do in order to deliver for your business. And then once we've got that understanding, let's do a proof of concept. Let's see what we can do with a short engagement. So we proposed a 5-day engagement to them and said, let's see where we get with this. And of course, we didn't know that system. We worked with their support company that provided support for that system. And luckily, it had all of the APIs and all of the things that we needed. So we wrote some code to get these two things that had never spoken to each other before working together. So now they've got information that flows between these two systems, such as products and quotes and customers and various other things. So they've now got a joined up system, whereas previously they had a manual system, some spreadsheets and this big ERP system, whereas now they've got a system that supports the whole business, and that's enabled them to grow and expand.
So what sort of size businesses do you typically work with?
Well, I guess given our size, I mean, we're about sort of 15 people at the moment, although we do extend, that where needed through external resources. We work largely with small to medium enterprises, but, one of our very first projects back in 2016 when I started the company was with a major high street pharmacy company, which I was quite shocked actually that they were willing to do business with me, but they were keen on my understanding and my expertise. I understood their business. I understood the domain. I understood the system that they were trying to put in place. And it was really about procuring drugs from the European market to then sell through channels into the UK. And so they had identified that supply chain function, which was run off some spreadsheets and some internal systems, was coming to an end of life. It had been around for probably 20, 30 years or so. And so they saw in me a way to bring in some more up-to-date, more contemporary technology that would enable them to move away from some of those spreadsheets and some of those old systems. And we connected with those systems. We replaced the spreadsheet and we did an integration with SAP, because that's how they managed all of their financials and their order management. And so it's largely SMEs, but occasionally, if we've got the right kind of expertise, I'm happy to engage with other organisations too. It's really about a fit, and I do say to people when we're having conversations, it is a bit like a relationship or a marriage. You need to figure out whether we're right for you, but also we need to figure out whether it works the other way too, because it is very much a collaboration and a partnership for us.
So, I'm a small business. I'm thinking, what would I be thinking? Why would I be coming knocking on your door? Why would I go looking for, or do you go looking for them? How does it work?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, Granger. I think we probably do both. Luckily, we work with some great partners that have applications that run on the Salesforce platform that refer companies to us. We work with a company based in the US called Ascent Solutions, and they make this ERP system that I referred to in a couple of my previous answers. And we represent them in the UK. So we don't sell their software, but we do the implementation for them. So to give you an example, they were approached by a book company in the US. So they run book fairs in schools. They also provide book subscription services. And they had just acquired another company, merged the two companies together, and found that their systems were a little bit in disarray. They weren't quite aligned with their strategic objectives of growth, of streamlining the business, not necessarily removing staff, but streamlining what they did and I guess sticking to the knitting, really. And so they came to us and we had a conversation with them around their objective was to increase the amount of book fairs they ran by 50% after go live of a new system. So we worked with them to specify what that system needed to do, which was effectively automating their book fair operations, the fulfillment of those book fairs, the management of the stock, the management of the sales, and all of the consolidation of financials and everything else. And then the post-book fair settlements, bringing the stock back. And we understood all those processes. And then we used this ERP system from our American partner, and we configured that to support exactly what they needed. And they went live almost 10 months ago. They've run almost 2 seasons now of book fairs, and they've almost managed to increase their throughput by 50%, which was one of their key objectives. And sometimes people come to us and say, look, we want to do this. We want to increase our throughput by 50%. Other people like the charity that I mentioned earlier, Animal Free Research, came to us because they just needed a new system to support something that they were starting from scratch. They hadn't done this before. Or folks might come to us because they want some improvements. So we did a project for a company that focuses on retail. They're based in Cheltenham, actually, with German ownership. And they came to us because they had an existing system in place, but found that it wasn't properly aligned to their business. So they wanted that to be optimized to support their latest processes. But they also wanted to make sure that it worked for the salespeople and the business development people and the account managers, and provided the right kind of reports, because they found that what they had in place was quite clunky. They had lots of things that blocked them from moving forward, because the original system was designed to do that. You can't do this until you've done that. Well, in some cases, they might need to just, go around that, because that was the nature of the engagement or nature of the conversation, and the system stopped them from doing that. So people got really frustrated. They stopped using the system. The MD stopped getting his, sales reports and all of the other KPIs that he was hoping to get. So they said, look, we need to refactor this. And so we took a look at it and decided that, given the way that it had been put together, that we started from scratch. Now, we don't always do that, because sometimes it doesn't make sense.
Brilliant. Oh, I can really see that and understand how you delight and take your customers forward. So let's go back to 2016. You started the company. So what was it all about? Why did you start? And over the last of 8 years-ish, what's gone well? What hasn't gone well?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's good to reflect back sometimes. We don't often do that enough, I think. But for me, August 2016 was quite a landmark for me with starting Coacto. I'd been working in the Salesforce space, both as a user. I had a previous company that used Salesforce as its operational hub. And when I moved away from that company back in 2011, I moved into consulting, because looking back at my career at that point, as I did, I recognized that I had some great skills in working with and managing people. I had, because I started out as a developer, I had really good technical skills. I have written code in the past, but I found as I went through my career, I increasingly gravitated closer and closer to the customer. And ultimately that culminated in me ended up doing some sales and some business development when I lived out in San Francisco for a while. And so I thought, combining those technical skills and those commercial and sales skills, and also the skills that I had acquired from running that company with a couple of other business partners, that I would strike out on my own. And initially I thought maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome crept in, and I thought, well, can I really do this? Have I got the skills? So I decided to go out as an independent, because that meant it was just about me, and I would just contract. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I was pulled into an organization because they saw what I was doing and said, we'd really like you to work with us and help you grow our business. And so they were a small boutique Salesforce consultancy based in Birmingham. So I joined them. And I have to say, when you reflect back on your career, there are points at which you think, just all the stars align and it feels great. And that felt great. And I managed to grow the business probably 300 or 400%, I think, working with them. And I was doing some business development, as well as doing some of the solution architecture and some of the technical roles, backed by a development team. And it felt great. And then that company was taken over, and it just, it was like a big cloud had come in front of the sun. And I thought, this is not really where I want to be. And so I was in a situation where I'd recently moved house. I'd had a little one arrive, and I was thought, oh gosh, can I make the leap now? What do I do? So I stuck it out for a year or so, and then, as luck would have it, they came to me and said, look, Paul, we're going to close down our Salesforce practice. They'd acquired it. It hadn't really fitted in with their business model. And they said, well, that means that we probably don't need you any longer. So I thought, and rather than going, oh, no, I went, yes, great. So I then started some conversations with them and said, look, if you are asking me to go, why don't I take that part of your business from you? And that means that that part of the business is going to be managed away from you. You can continue to do what you need to do. I have almost like a ready-made business. I mean, it was a little bit fragmented at that point because it hadn't really worked in a way that maybe I thought was the right way to work. And so I took those customers. I took, everything that represented that aspect of the business and thought, I can start Coacto. And of course, that solved a problem for them because they would have had to really work hard to move away from those people because they had active contracts, they had active projects. And so I really got like a warm start, to be honest with you. It was just, it's almost like a dream come true for somebody starting a business is, here's some customers, here's some leads, there's a small revenue stream. I didn't really have to market the company for probably the first 3 or 4 years because what I got there was just, a bag of gold really for me. I think they were happy, they didn't know it was a bag of gold. They were happy to give that to me and I took it. And then I ran the company for, the first sort of 2 or 3 years, just really off the back of that. And, that was an amazing start. I'm grateful and blessed to have been in that opportunity. But what I did do was I grasped the nettle. Somebody else might have said, oh, no, I don't know. I don't know whether I can do that. But I did. And, 8 years on, we've entered a new phase in the organization because, we've really started to grow over the last couple of years. COVID was okay for us because we managed to survive on some existing contracts and the engineering company that I mentioned, they started their project during that phase. So we were fine during COVID. We've come out now and kind of like, the clouds have gone and we're growing, really well. We've almost probably doubled in size last year. And I think it's difficult to double every year. We're not going to double this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if we increased maybe 30-40% on last year based on the plan that we've put in place. And that's happened because we've had the focus. One of the things that have worked really well, I took on a business coach 3 years ago to hold me accountable because as a business owner it can be very lonely sometimes. Who do you answer to? Who holds you to account? Who says, why are you doing that? Why are you not doing that? Have you thought about doing this? How's that going? And so that's really helped focus my mind down. And I find now I'm drawing on all the strands of the things that I've done previously in my career to make Coacto what it is today. And, as we were talking about earlier, every business needs processes and systems to run and manage their business. And so I think we're well placed to, with the expertise that we have to help people do that.
So, yeah, that's quite a rapid growth in what you've achieved in terms of an SME. You're now up to 15 people, but you've not done that in 8 years. You've done that in the last sort of 3-ish years. So finding people is a really important part of any business growth, and specifically in a small business because, difficult people can really sap a small business. So how have you gone about finding the right people for you?
Yeah, I think, for most business owners, finding people is to some extent the Achilles heel of a business. It's one of the biggest challenges, to deal with. But if you get it right, then it's like night and day. And, we've been very lucky with some of the hires that we've made. Like everybody, we've made some that haven't quite worked out, for both sides. But I think it's really about identifying people that have the right attitude and people that can demonstrate, achievement without necessarily, having the right skills. So I think, we've brought people into our business that have, in some cases, great industry experience, but may not have experience of the Salesforce technology. But if they can do all of those things really well, then that enables us to deliver our services. And that's been, I think, a key recipe behind our growth in the last 2 to 3 years. And so what we've done is I've used my network. I've got a very large LinkedIn network. I know lots of people in the Salesforce community. I've spoken at conferences. I network at Salesforce events. So I'm fairly well known within the Salesforce community. But we've also, gone out to, we've used a couple of local recruitment folks that we've built a really good relationship with. And we've also, I think, just hired with an understanding of people. I'm a very people-oriented person. And I remember actually in a previous business, one of my business partners almost critiqued me for that, for having that personable side, for trying to not get really close to people, but to understand them, to understand their needs and their is it Maslow's hierarchy?
Of needs, yes.
Exactly. It's about understanding that, because I think if you can engage with people at that level, then I think you can get the best out of them and they can get the best out of you. And so it becomes very much a symbiotic relationship. I don't see my team of people as being resources that are delivering for me. I see them as an engaged team where we have, we have integrity, we take ownership, we seek constant improvement and learning, and we learn from our mistakes, and we try and communicate, and and create sort of a positive teamwork environment that really eschews our values as a business, but also our values as working together. It's got to be nice working with people, and it's very hard sometimes to make those choices, even just with 2 or 3 interviews. And so I think we've been very lucky with some of our hires, in the sense that we're lucky that they've joined us, and they've been absolutely fabulous.
And with that, you call it luck, but I'm just any hints and tips in terms of the interviewing type process? Are there any key things that, because you talked about finding people with the right attitude rather than necessarily the skills? How do you have a way of teasing that out?
Yeah, good questions, I think, and we try to understand the person. We try to understand what makes them tick. We try to understand how they feel about, what they've done, what their outcomes and what their achievements are, as a sense of connecting. And I think, I'm a great believer in using intuition. I've had some coaching previously where somebody said that I should really listen to my intuition. And if I reflect back on the occasions that I haven't, I've probably made a decision that I probably would have, given the opportunity, made in a different way. Yeah. So I think you feel that, and through that connection and through that questioning. We also get people to do a skills test, and in some cases it's a generic skills test, and in some cases, if it's a Salesforce person specifically, we'll get them to do a skills test. But what we're looking for there is not their knowledge. It's really about how they tackle that task. Does it unnerve them? Are they relaxed? What kind of questions do they ask? How do they engage with that? How do they respond? And how do they interface with us in that environment? And that tells us much, much more about people than a ton of interview questions or doing some kind of test. And then what we often do once we've maybe shortlisted people or even taken people on is we run a test whose name completely escapes me now. What's it called? Gosh. You may recall you have red, green, blue, and yellow. And so people are scored based on their personality type.
Okay. So sort of a DISC profile type thing.
DISC, that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we use DISC in our coaching as well. So
yeah, and that can be hugely informative about their personality and aspects of their personality. It doesn't really look at their skills, but it looks about what their behaviors are, as you know, and how they might interface with people. So if you've got somebody that's a really high red, for example, you know the characteristics of a high red person, and therefore you can interface with them in a way that gets the best out of them. And that's been a really good insight for us. In being able to look at that and see how we interface with people. But it's also about sometimes aligning the profile of that DISC result back to the role that somebody's going to do. So, having one of our consultants being a high red, for example, probably isn't a good idea, because they're likely maybe to be a little bit too over-facing maybe with the customers, rather than taking much more of a listening and more of a consultative type approach. And so that's been a very, very useful tool for us. And I've got our business coach to thank for introducing that to us, because that's been good. So I think, to summarize, good questions, using DISC profiles, using interviews, and using skills tests and interviews to see how people respond to being put on the spot.
Brilliant. So I just want to go back to a bit. You talked about your passion of engaging the team, learning, building and improving culture, having that real positive working attitude. So how do you have you created that? What are the things that you do, the mechanisms that you do in the business that keep that running?
Yeah, I think one of the most important thing is to lead by example. And so, I have very strong values, and I've reflected those values through the organization. And, I've kind of set those in some ways as not a benchmark, but something to aspire to aspire to excellence, to integrity, to having good communication. And, one of the really key things, we had a situation, I must have been like 18 months ago now, with one of our team, where something went wrong, and it went not catastrophically wrong, it was recoverable, but they were mortified, and they were really, they almost took the approach that we were going to blame them, we were going to told them to task. And, I took them to one side because, somebody said to me once, which I thought was a really great piece of advice, is you should praise in public and counsel in private. So I took this person to one side, and we had a conversation about, what had happened and how they felt and why they felt it happened and what could be done differently. Not about blaming them or pointing the finger. And so the conversation turned to, how do you think we can fix this? What do you think we need to do? What are the lessons that we can learn from the fact that this hasn't quite gone according to plan? Because not everything does. And they were quite taken aback by that approach, because previously they'd worked in an environment where people were very much held account for their decisions or what they'd done, and were blamed. And it seems were sometimes dressed down for that. And I said, we don't do that here, because for me, that's not respectful. It's not the right way to treat people. But you don't then get the best out of people, and then you don't learn the lessons, and you don't then put the change in place that enables you to try to avoid those things in the future. And we had something this morning, actually. One of my team was asked for a quick chat, and there was something where something was going a little bit awry, and so I said, well, let's just talk about it. Tell me, give me the lowdown. Where are we at? How's everybody feeling? What's happened? What do you think we need to do? And by working with people in that way, I think you can build, confidence. You can show leadership. You can show that you're mentoring and supporting people to help them achieve what they want to achieve. And I think that's an endemic part of our culture now, and that most people now, 95% of the time, behave in that way. And so it becomes almost like self-fulfilling. It doesn't have to come from me now, because, whilst I started the company and I'm the founder and the owner, this company isn't about me. It's about all the people. And it's recognizing that if I look after those people and they look after each other, then we'll look after our customers. So somebody said to me the other day, I was at it was a networking meeting. Somebody said, what's the most important thing in your business? And I said, my staff, my team are the most important. What about your customers? I said, they're really important too, but my team are the most important, because if I look after them, they'll look after my customers. Yeah. And I think, the person I was speaking to, I think was a little taken aback, because often people say the most important thing are our customers. And they are really, really important, but my team are more important.
But what's fantastic in your answer there to my question is, some people say their team is important, but you have just demonstrated it beautifully in the way that you described how you lead your people, how you listen to your people, how you encourage them to learn from mistakes. And that's quite rare, Paul, from meeting leaders. in any business and industry. So, real credit there in terms of what you do and how you're creating that environment and culture within your organization.
It's just, if I just add to that, I think it's also really important to listen, because I hear, and actually, the people I've worked with in the past, and I've worked with some great people, and I'm grateful to the learnings from those people, positive or negative, but it's about listening. And we're born with 2 ears and 1 mouth, I think.
Very true. Very true.
The reason, and you have to hear people's story. You have to let them, so it's not about me talking to them about what might have happened. It's about them telling me and me listening, and then working it out together.
So the business is growing. You've done some amazing things. You've really you doubled, and then maybe 20, 30, 40% this year. If we're to meet in 5 years' time and we'll sit down and have a coffee and say, right, what's happened over the last 5 years? What do you want to do and achieve both professionally and personally to make it a really successful 5 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've been working through some planning recently. We haven't quite got to our sort of 5-year plan yet. We're just sort of around between the 1 to 2 year mark. But we want to continue to grow and do the things that we're doing, delivering the great results for our customers where we can, and building and growing the team are 2 key objectives for us, and keeping the company sustained through that growth path. And we think we can do that because Salesforce have been growing 20% year on year since they started in 1999. But I'd like to, personally for me, I'd like to, having started the company, and I was completely working in the company, because on day one, it was just me. There wasn't anybody else that I could go to and say, oh, can you just do this for me? Can you just do that? How would we do this? So what I want to do is to really extend, I think, my leadership across the business by doing less of the things that have me in the business. And there are always situations where you need to work in the business, to support people, to mentor people, or where I just need to be wheeled in maybe as the resident expert if I've got some expertise in a particular area. But I want to be working more on the business. So my plan over the next 12 to 18 months is to be focused on maintaining our vision, our values, our culture, our growth, really leading the business by building the team around me. So that would be what I would see extending out over a 2-year time frame, but probably a 5-year time frame as well. And then ultimately, I'd like to do some of the things that I've maybe neglected over the last 7 or 8 years with running the business, and I'll be working maybe I've just recently moved down to 4.5 days a week. I'll move down to 4, 3.5, maybe 3 days a week. But as you can probably tell, I'm very passionate about what we do, and I love working with our customers. I really enjoy what we do. I can't see myself hanging up my boots, anytime soon.
No.
And so I want to be part of that, because I get a huge amount out of what we do. I think I've got a huge amount to give, but equally, I think balancing that against doing some of the things that I like to do, some of the things I like to do outside of business, I'd like to do a little bit more of that. And also, I know everybody says this, but spend a little bit more time with my family, because what I don't want to do is have a regret that I haven't spent enough time, with my family, or done the things that actually we're on this planet for, I think, ultimately. And I read a summary of a book recently called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. I don't know if you've come across it. And, the biggest regret people have is, I spent too much time working. I spent too much time doing the things, to sustain who I am and my family, rather than spending time with my family. And I don't want to be that person, on my, whenever it happens, because of course that's inevitable. I want to reflect back and say, I did the right things. I nourished myself and I nourished the people around me.
Wow. Paul, that's fantastic. I mean, what an awesome objective over the next 5 years. Nourishing yourself and nourishing those people around you. I mean, it's been a fantastic conversation. The detail of what you do and the business and how you help your clients. Help them grow and scale. How you help the automations and the linkages of systems to give people the chance to really develop and grow within their own businesses. But not just that, the real focus and attention that's come out in this conversation that you bring in your personal style to develop your business. I love you talked about the stars aligning. Yeah, maybe I often say every 30 days, something will come across your path. Are you awake to see it? You awake. You're an awake person. You saw that opportunity. You went for it. You made that happen. And you made it happen because of, I think, your principles, your values, and you brought those values into the team. You've helped your business grow through the individuals learning and taking ownership, the individuals learning through themselves in terms of what they do and how you interview people to find the right people. You talk about intuition, yes, but I think intuition comes because you've got that great grounding of listening to them, developing a skills test, using the DISC profile, and really thinking about how that individual would fit within your organization, and your real passion about people. And that's come out through the whole of this. And that's been the inspiring message for this entire conversation for me, that you have really iterated to me again that real importance of how leadership of people helps business grow and scale, and you've gone in 3 years up to 15 people. That really is a fantastic thing around that. And I think for me in a businesses grow and achieve because of great conversations that take place in the businesses. Yes, we need processes. Yes, we need systems. Yes, we need structure, absolutely. But what we need is powerful conversations that allow us to challenge our thinkings and challenge the business thinkings. And I can see in the way you've described your business that you allow those really important conversations to take place. So, Paul, thank you so much. It's been a fantastic story and a journey that you're on. And thank you for sharing it with us. We always finish with a quick fire round, if we may.
Okay. Yep.
So if you were to go back to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
Go faster. Do more and do it faster. I think my earlier self probably doubted my ability and doubted what I was capable of. And, people often say, when you're older, gosh, I wish I could have some of my years again. And I think most people would probably feel that way. And I would like to do that if I had the opportunity, is to go back, and I would go faster. And actually probably with Coacto, I think, in the first 2 or 3 years, I kept the company a particular size because it suited where I was at. It suited my mindset. It suited my objectives at the time. And but I think now looking at what we've done over the last 18 months, 2 years, I think I would have gone faster, probably from my 20s.
Brilliant. Thank you. Books, do you recommend any books to our audience?
Yeah, there's a ton of books, actually. I think from a business perspective, I think one of the books that's probably been pivotal to me was Michael Gerber's E-Myth. It's a fairly short, fairly straightforward book that is really about this entrepreneurial myth. People end up in business doing all the things that they don't want to do because they can't find a way out of that. So it takes them away from the whole reason that they started the business in the first place.
Yeah.
And I had that in my mind, somebody given me a copy before I started the company. And I had that in my mind when I started Coacto. And back in my mind ever since then has been, I don't want to end up doing all of the things that I don't want to be doing. I want to do the things that I'm good at, the things that I enjoy, the things that make me happy, and then hire people to do the things that I'm not so good at or I can't do, and that maybe they have the skills at. And the E-Myth really taught me that. So anybody starting a business or even running a business or reflecting on a business, I'd recommend Gerber's book. It's really quite insightful. It's quite simple, but actually when you look at it, it's almost like a slap round the face and say, oh yeah, of course, it's so obvious. Why am I not doing it?
Yes, we call that the owner's trap. And yeah, I love that book. It is a very, very powerful book. Podcast, do you listen to any podcasts?
Yeah, I'm just starting to get into podcasts actually because my one of my great hires actually a guy called Gary Freeman who has been working with us for about 3 or 4 years, actually maybe 5 years. Gary recommended Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO, and we've shared some great conversations around some of the content that's come out of his listening to those podcasts. So that's something on my to-do list, something that I want to start looking at. But I think he's had an amazing journey from where he's come from to where he is now, and he's really, you talk about conversation. He's sparking some great conversations and some great value coming out of those podcasts. So that's the next thing on my list is to do that. Brilliant.
Onto your mobile phone. Any apps on your mobile phone that make a difference for you?
Oh gosh, I'm glued to my mobile phone, probably as most people are as a business owner. Have I got any apps on there that are absolutely amazing? Do you know what? I'm just going to have to grab it. Let me just have a look, just a quick refresh and see. One app that I recently got, which is really great, is an app called Seatfrog. And Seatfrog enables you, this is not necessarily business focused, but if you're traveling on a train and you want to maybe sit in first class because the standard class is too busy, you can bid for an upgrade on first class. You can get a first class seat from about £8. So that's a really good app that I found recently, and I used it actually just last week. And standard class was absolutely rammed. And I got an upgrade for like £7.50, I think it was. So I sat in first class for the journey, which was amazing. Let's see, what other apps have I got on my phone that have been amazing? What I have done actually, we use Google internally as sort of our baseline infrastructure, and I've installed all the apps on my phone now, so I can now interact with documents and sheets and slides and Google Drive and meetings, and that has been great because just occasionally when I need to pick something up, I can do it all I can actually run my business from my phone now. So that's been amazing.
Brilliant. My favorite question, who's had the most influence on you as a business leader?
Oh, that's a very good question. Who's had the most influence on me as a business leader? An obvious one, I guess, is Richard Branson. I know he's a Marmite person for many people. I've also been very fortunate enough to interview him recently for not for my business, but for something else. And I've worked on a couple of projects with him. But right from the very early days, what he achieved with setting up Virgin Records, and I think his inspiring approach to building teams around him and hiring people that were better than him was really quite inspiring to me. And I think he taught me to take risks sometimes. It's very easy not to take a risk, and I think it might have been him or somebody else that likened a business to being on a boat. When you're a business owner, you're on a boat. If you're an employee, you're on a train. Now, trains might suit some people. They know the destination is predetermined. You can't easily get off a train. The boat can go wherever you want it to go. And I kind of liked that idea because I think part of me has a little bit of a slightly maverick side to me. I like to do things that are slightly unconventional. I never go the same way to work in the morning, for example, or I do things that somebody might think, well, why are you doing it that way? So just because I've always done it this way, I'm going to do it a different way. Now I'm going to try it out and just see what the results are. So I'm trying to make myself not predictable. And that was one of the things that I think he showed us, when he started his airline, when he started his gym. I mean, all these things have just come from ideas, and he's just latched onto those and really been, he's very successful, but he's also a very personable chap.
Yeah, I love his books. There's a lot of great thoughts in his books. So yeah, fantastic. So finally, Paul, how can people get hold of you?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and you can go to our website, coacto.co.uk. That's coacto.co.uk. Google will try and rephrase that from Coacto to Costco. So just be mindful, you might end up on the Costco website. That's not our website. And I think if something you mentioned earlier on, Granger, about sort of sparking conversations is something that we've done recently. We did a presentation at a business group a couple of weeks ago, really with the idea of trying to spark conversations with people. And there was about 30 or 40 businesses in the room. And we were completely inundated with people that wanted to try to improve their businesses, improve their processes, improve their systems. And we put something out there that said, look, if you want to have a conversation, let's just have a conversation. Free conversation, free, almost like a free consultation. So we've got a page on our website that you can go to. You can either email marketing@coacto.co.uk to say, I'd like a conversation with you, or I'd like a free consultation. Or there's a page on our website, coacto.co.uk. It's /Salesforce-consultation. And there's a form there. You can just fill it out. Let us know what you want to chat about. You can pick a day, morning or afternoon. That sends something out into our system, and then we can get in touch and just have that conversation.
Brilliant. Well, Paul, thank you so much for this amazing conversation today. I've really enjoyed it, and real good reflection on the power of good leadership. So thank you so much.
No, I'm really appreciative of the opportunity, Granger. Thanks so much for having me on your podcast and allowing me to share, part of my story. And it's been great. I've really enjoyed the conversation too. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.